We've always had a terrific tradition of bringing great reporters and great communicators to the ATF party every year. We've had great folks from Christopher Hitchens to the late great Andrew Breitbart, Mary Catherine Ham, Fred Moore. I particularly enjoyed having Steve Moore from the Wall Street Journal, who I swear has never touched a gun in his life. And as he was shooting, somebody whispered to me, he says he works for the Wall Street Journal, but it looks like he works for the New York Times. With that, the media is changing. The way we get our information is changing. And online publications are more and more important and more valued. You know, there's one little site that has the folks at Huffington Post looking over their shoulder, I think, every day, and that's the Daily Caller. The Daily Caller is just one of the best portals for news in the country. One of our longtime friends from there, the man who does not only the cigar column, but also the editor of the Daily Caller, has been a great friend of ours and a great friend of freedom and a real enemy of nannyism for as long as I can remember him. So without any further ado, let me introduce the one and only David Martosko.
So I guess some of you read the Daily Caller? Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah. All right, there we go. Actually, I have a major announcement about the Daily Caller before I really get started. The Daily Caller is always breaking new ground on news, journalism, and reporting. And so since we're smashing barriers all the time, I'd like to announce that next week we're going to inaugurate a new section of the Daily Caller, an LGBT section. That's lasagna, guns, beer, and tobacco. Oh, you guys think I'm joking? Look, we're already the only major news outlet in America with a guns and gear section. We actually have one. I'm writing a cigar column now called Cigar Hunter. We have a wonderful junior editor named Chris Bedford who reviews beers. So I suspect right about now Tucker Carlson is cooking marinara sauce and squishing ricotta cheese. And that's all that's left. You know, I'm really glad to be back here. I spoke on a panel at this event in 2009 with David Harsanyi, formerly of the Denver Post, and the late Andrew Breitbart. And I'll never forget riding around in a van at night with Breitbart, and the window was open, and he was literally howling at the moon. And, I mean, what a character. I nudged him and I basically said, dude, what's with the hooting? And Breitbart turned to me and he said, man, if you're not having fun, if you're not letting it all hang out, there is something seriously wrong with you. You know, Breitbart became famous, and maybe even more so after his untimely death, for hating big government types who tell us what we should do and how we should do it, with their, you know, command and control philosophies, and secretly a lot of them being human train wrecks themselves. But what we sometimes forget is that, you know, Breitbart also despised, maybe even more, those nameless, faceless, bureaucratic nightmares who try to control what we do from behind dark curtains. I hate them too. I really do. I hate that they're smug. I hate that they believe that they can tell us all what's best for us. I hate that they have taxpayer-funded public union jobs to tell us what's best for us and to do it outside the cold truth of common sense. I mean, I even hate that they sleep well at night, frankly. Don't you a little bit? Now, I think I know what Breitbart's up to right now. I think it's not, you know, lobbying the almighty against former congressmen named after male body parts. It's really not. I think he's rollerblading around heaven, and he's probably doing it with C.S. Lewis. Not because Andrew finally found religion, not because, you know, he's read the Chronicles of Narnia. But if you only know Lewis through Christian apologetics, what I'm about to read you might shock you a little bit. In 1948, Lewis wrote a wonderful essay called The Humanitarian View of Punishment. And part of that punishment included people who inflict punishment on each other for no good reason. This is what Lewis wrote. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end because they do so with the approval of their own consciences. They may be more likely to go to heaven, yet at the same time likelier to make a hell on earth. So I'm not drinking, but I'm smoking a cigar to C.S. Lewis. I mean, it sounds like Breitbart meets Oxford. You know, I absolutely love that. Dave Kopel is right. Basic freedoms are crumbling all around us. Bloomberg's a great example of this. I mean, somehow he manages never to be photographed in his frilly nanny costume, but I secretly think he dresses that way on the weekends. First he went after salt in restaurants. I mean, sure, there are people whose blood pressure spikes if they get too much sodium, but there are also people whose blood pressure does not spike if they eat too much sodium. People who are allowed to have access to a salt shaker without supervision. I mean, who the hell is Bloomberg to tell us what to put on our food anyway? Now, granted, if you're on a major dose of hypertension drug and you go around slurping soy sauce and licking margarita glasses, screw you, you're a moron, okay? But being a moron with a modicum of freedom beats the hell out of letting some know-it-all create a Nerf planet for you to live in, and that's what they're basically trying to do. Now Bloomberg has decided that a soft drink bigger than 16 ounces should be beyond the reach of grown men and women. Absolute idiocy. We should mock this and ridicule it and come up with silly names for it by all means. But here's what I love about this controversy. This kind of absurdity tends to bring out the best in Americans. We rally against it, we do something. A friend of mine at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office told me something remarkable. She said that shortly, a few weeks after Bloomberg announced this soda crackdown, somebody actually made an inquiry to find out if a new kind of soft drink cup had been patented yet. Okay, now bear with me, this is really, really cool. It's a cylindrical paper cup. It's not tapered at all. It's a perfect cylinder. And it has a movable bottom. So you go to the counter at Subway and they sell you a 16-ounce soda, right? The cup they give you can only contain 16 ounces of liquid because the bottom is halfway up the height of the cup. You take a plastic straw and you give it one good shove, you poke it down, it locks into place, and now you've got a 24-ounce cup. I mean, that's a big screw you to Michael Bloomberg, isn't it? It reminds me a couple years ago when the city of Chicago banned the sale of duck liver foie gras. A bunch of animal rights nuts said, oh dear, the ducks, horrible that they're force-fed to make their livers engorge, whatever. The animal rights people always get their undies in a twist about something, and that year it was foie gras. So the problem is that there was some nincompoop in city government whose mind was just so open, he had such an open mind that his freaking brain fell out. And the important thing is that these Mensa candidates at the Chicago, aldermen, they did not outlaw consuming foie gras. They didn't outlaw cooking it, they outlawed selling it. So, again, human ingenuity kicks in. There was a group of 6, 7, 8 restaurants, fine dining restaurants, white tablecloth places, and they called themselves the Duck Easies, right? I'm not making that up. Here's what they started to do. Now, previously, they would sell you this $50 plate of foie gras. And it would come with a complimentary toasted crostini and a little sprig of parsley as a garnish. Now they said you can't do that anymore, so here's what they did. They sold you for $50 the toasted crostini and the garnish, and they gave you the foie gras as a garnish. Eventually the law was neutered. Even Mayor Daley said, let's just cut our losses and get the hell out of this. They repealed the law. But back in New York, they haven't gotten the memo yet. They have the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and I'm not joking, that's what it's called. The next thing that's happened, and this has actually come up in their health board meetings, a movie popcorn. They're going to limit the size of movie popcorn servings in movie theaters. And after that will come the size of your milkshakes and frappuccinos. Because again, you guys can't be trusted with these things. They're dangerous products. And if you read something this month about Michael Bloomberg telling New York City hospitals to put away the baby formula for newborn babies for mothers, that's not a joke. You're not reading The Onion. That actually happened. Now, he may be right. Breastfeeding may be healthier. Both of my daughters were breastfed. Fine, whatever. I suppose next they're going to ban breastfeeding if the women are big enough that there's more than 16 ounces of milk in there, right? Now, am I a little nuts for slapping around Michael Bloomberg so much? I don't know. The latest polls show that 65% of Americans are against limiting soft drink sizes in New York. 65%, so why all the fuss? Now my question is, why the heck only 65%? What's wrong with the rest of those 35% of the people? Who are the idiots who think this is a good idea? They're probably the same idiots who think it's a wonderful idea for the USDA, and this actually happened too, to change the menu in their cafeterias on Mondays to celebrate Meatless Mondays. In the USDA cafeteria on Mondays, it's meatless. This is the federal government agency that inspects and grades steak. They set the rules and regulations for how you sell bacon. But because of a bunch of vegetarian activists, the only cuisine you can get there on Mondays is like, a quinoa salad with tofu. I'm eating somewhere else. And I speak from experience. I tried to go vegetarian once before. I really did. It was the longest 45 minutes of my life. But vegetarians aren't all bad. They're really good for comic relief. And frankly, if you want to be a vegetarian or a Unitarian or, yes, John, a libertarian, fine with me. I don't care. Just keep it to yourself and be proud of what you are and don't force it on people. My favorite bit of comic relief from vegetarians came in an episode of The Simpsons once when Lisa, the daughter, announced at the dinner table she was going to be a vegetarian. And Homer said, hey, wait a minute. Lisa, honey, you're telling me you're never going to eat animals again? Oh, what about a bacon? And she says, no. Ham? No, Dad. Pork chops? She says, no, Dad, those all come from the same animal. And he says, oh yeah, sure, Lisa, a magical, wonderful animal. Now, honestly, I never liked Lisa Simpson. She reminded me of every PETA-donating, dirt-worshipping, Emily Dixon-reading, anti-everything person that I enjoyed mocking from a safe distance at Dartmouth College in the late 1980s. And I realized later in life why my friends and I would tell jokes at their expense. It wasn't because they were different or mysterious or because we felt threatened by them. It was because they were never happy about anything. Never. I mean, they were in an Ivy League school about to have the world by the proverbial cojones. That wasn't enough for them. It didn't give them pleasure. So ask yourself, how many PETA people have you ever seen who are genuinely happy people? How many gun control activists are content with their lives when they're not controlling yours? How many anti-sugar crusaders manage to go through life without a constant scowl on their faces? They're scared that somewhere someone is enjoying a lollipop. Oh no. And I don't know any tobacco Nazis, anti-tobacco Nazis who are ever cheerful in the morning. I'm not cheerful until I have my breakfast cigar, but that's just me. I mean, let's face it, enjoying freedoms and enjoying your own course through life and plotting that course is fun. Sometimes you work without a net, but it's fun, isn't it? Who do you think's happier in life? The town alderman who fines a kid for having a lemonade stand that's unregulated? Or the parents in the town that pay the fine so the kids can be kicked? I'll bet with the parents every day. So we're here to shoot guns in the air today, right? I shot some really badly. Smoking premium cigars, drinking something handcrafted for the sole purpose of enjoying it. And damn it, the simplicity of it all. It's making everybody in this room happy. I can see it. You guys are enjoying yourselves. Now, a note for John Caldera for next year, the only thing that would make it better, we need an ice cream sundae station over there, and a chocolate river back there with some Oompa Loompas would be great. Now, you have to understand there is a logical argument that's being made for the anti-soda, the anti-sugar, the anti-meat nannies, Bloomberg, the Humane Society of the United States, which is not a real humane society, by the way. It's PETA with a nicer wristwatch. Beware them. They're saying that not smoking, not eating meat, not eating fatty foods is the patriotic thing to do because as healthcare changes and we all start sharing resources and becomes a public thing instead of a private thing, they say, my cigar smoking will put health expenses on all of you. Now that's nonsense. Fat people and smokers are the most patriotic people in America. I mean, look at me. I'm not a skinny man. And I smoke cigars. I write a cigar column. I will die 6 weeks early because of that, and I will save the healthcare system hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, they should name a street in Ohio after me. I'm a freaking hero. And honestly, why worrying about being overweight? 100 or 2 years ago, corpulent bodies were the physical ideal. People painted them. If you didn't have junk in your trunk, you know, Titian and Raphael did not want to paint your body. Being fat indicated that you were not part of the peasant class. You weren't starving. That was a good thing. And back then, the rich and the famous even, you know, their life expectancy was 45 years old. Today, I checked this last night, the UN says that the life expectancy average for American adults is 78. Pretty cool. I think we're pushing the limits of the human body's ability to bounce back from things. So at a certain point, if you prevent yourself from dying of lung cancer, you're going to die of Alzheimer's anyway. The point of diminishing returns has been reached and blown by. And guess what? Anxiety, it's a health risk. Hate to break it to you. And happiness, psychiatrists will tell us, can be as beneficial to brain chemistry as some of the best drugs they can give out. Even better than the healthy food that our First Lady pushes on Sesame Street, by the way. It's true. So where did all this nanny state command and control stuff come from? It came from the modern public health establishment, the public health movement. And more than often than not, I think the public health movement is just a complete menace and an obstacle to our happiness. Originally, the public health field was all about curing and stopping epidemics. Okay, that's what it was instituted for. But 100 years later, you know, we've cured and eradicated polio, measles, mumps, whooping cough, tuberculosis, the Black Plague. I mean, stuff that used to kill tens, hundreds of millions of people. It's now almost never heard of. So if you're in the public health establishment, you've got to reinvent yourself to stay relevant. Because there are millions of government grant dollars at stake. There are college professorships. If you price yourself out of the market by being irrelevant, the money dries up. So the public health people had to find something else to do. And you know, there's still some of the public health establishment that's about AIDS and cancer, and that's fine. That's what it should do. It's good. But public health mostly has become a social science instead of a hard science, and that's the problem. So, you know, you've got a lot of quasi-academics who can't cut it in the laboratory. And so instead of doing hard science, they're regulating our salt intake and shrinking our dessert portions because that's all they know how to do. So, you know, I used to represent an organization called the Center for Consumer Freedom, and it's a nonprofit food advocacy group, industry funded, a lot of creative messaging. And they tell me now that there's a professor at UC San Francisco, of course, San Francisco, who is on TV claiming that sugar, right, the stuff that spoonful makes the medicine go down, okay, sugar is so dangerous and toxic that the government should regulate it like alcohol. Yeah, and on CNN, Sanjay Gupta, he nods in deep approval like he's received some great wisdom from the man on the mountain. I mean, come on, it's sugar for crying out loud. We've seen people airbrushing cigarettes out of old movies. You've seen this. I mean, you know, I can't wait for the next remake of Willy Wonka. We're all going to be eating broccoli. And of course, the public health idiocracy is coming after cigars. The FDA has been working on a rulemaking procedure for over a year now that would take cigarette regulations and apply all of them to cigars. So you get the big garish warning labels with the diseased lungs on every single cigar cellophane. You get the tax increases. They're going to ban sales of cigars that are not face-to-face. No more buying a cigar over the internet. And the rationale, believe it or not, is that 16-year-olds are spending $15 of their disposable income on cohibas. That's what they say. We have to keep cigars out of the hands of children, so we can't let people buy them over the internet because you can't show an ID. So, you know, they want all of this stuff to happen in cigars. And nobody is arguing about whether or not the FDA has the authority to do this, because they clearly do. But that's no excuse. It just isn't. And compared to the nutty environmental and OSHA regulations the small businesses have to contend with every day of the year, you know, maybe restricting cigars does not seem like a very big deal. But these things never seem urgent until it's your ox that's being gored, and then you care a lot. So eventually, something you care deeply about will be screwed around by the government. And then you'll care, and then you'll talk about it. I'm asking you to talk to people about it before then. Do what John suggests. Talk to people about this event. It's a heck of a lot of fun. But I do want you to know a little bit more about the Daily Caller. It's really unlike any other news organization in America. The reporters in our newsroom are fearless, energetic, hungry. Our editors do not have any sacred cows. You know, during the primary process, we went after an awful lot of Republican pretenders. And I think we did a good job at it. But we don't take marching orders from political parties, campaigns, anybody. And the sad thing is that puts us in a shrinking minority of U.S. newsrooms. It really does. I'd like to leave you with this thought. Most of the problems in the nanny culture, and I talked about social science versus hard science, most of the problems in the nanny culture arise because those two branches of disciplines, they operate like very different pieces of machinery. Hard science, the kind of science that says, gee, what causes cancer? It operates in a way that's very good and very honest about rethinking conclusions on the basis of new evidence. You know, Galileo, Einstein, Paracelsus, Stephen Hawking. You know, we may not always understand what they're talking about, but we trust that they're playing fair. And we trust that if they get something horribly wrong, the next generation of scientists will correct it, not try to cover it up. There's a built-in humility in hard sciences. There really is. And it's born of the recognition that the natural world is far too complex and wonderful for any one of us or any one generation of us to truly understand. But social sciences are an awful lot like political progressivism. They move in one direction only. They don't walk anything back, ever, no matter how flawed it is. And nobody's ever apologized, as far as I know, for the welfare system. Great Society. Nobody's ever apologized for that and said, gee, we should do this a different way. Or for outcome-based education, remember that one? The self-esteem movement among kids, total failure. Nobody's ever apologized for that. The marriage penalty in the income tax code. I'm waiting for an apology because I'm married. Nobody's ever going to apologize for telling college kids that a degree in ethnic studies or women's studies will make them employable. If that describes any of you, I'm very, very sorry. I'm not sorry for saying it, I'm just sorry. You see, because social sciences are subjective. So the definition of success can be whatever the hell you want it to be. And when there's nothing impressive to point to, it's your intentions that count for everything. So Michael Bloomberg is essentially practicing social science. If banning large sodas doesn't make the average New Yorker's body mass index go down, he'll say, well, I tried. It doesn't matter that it's based on junk science. But I always remember the Duck Easies and the paper cup with a movable bottom. So cool. Because government can't change human nature as much as it tries. They sure can make themselves feel good and purposeful. And they can do it with your tax dollars, which really, really sucks. And they can hold press conferences and issue expensive reports and guilt trip ordinary Americans into being less happy and less content. Don't get sucked in. The best revenge against the nanny culture does not come when we piss and moan and put up an angry fight. It really doesn't. It comes when you smile with the quiet knowledge that you're happy and they're not. I'm really sincerely grateful for John for having me out here today. I'm happy to answer questions, but the most important thing I can tell you is visit the Daily Caller on a daily basis. There have been months this year when we've had well over 6 million unique visitors. Our average puts us well above the New Yorker, the Atlantic, the Rolling Stone, the Chicago Tribune, and the Boston Globe. Thank you. It's America. We're changing the face of online news month by month, step by step, reader by reader. So if you don't read the Daily Caller, download the iPad app. Check in with us every day. We actually, again, have a guns and gear section, and I'm filing cigar columns twice a week. I mean, how cool is that? I was here yesterday in Denver at a place called Cigars on 6th, some of you may know of. What a cool shop. It's awesome. They have a barber chair in the back where you can get your hair cut while you smoke a Cohiba. I mean, is that cool? Is that America or what? So I'm going to write a cigar column about that, and I may actually write about some of you fine folks who I've met today. But that's what I brought for you, and I just want it to be a positive day, and I'm so grateful to have met so many of you and to have shot firearms with so many of you. And to all the clay pigeons I missed, I'll get you next time. Thank you very much.